How's it going, everybody? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I invite you to pull up a chair, sit back and relax, and welcome you to season 2, episode 12 of the SPMA Council Podcast. We're back in business for term 2. It's 2021. Kind of think that's crazy, but I hope everyone had a time to relax and recuperate this holiday break. I hope whether you did some stuff over the holiday break or you did a whole bunch of nothing. That's fine too. We need some time to slow life down after the first term. So again, hope everyone's doing well as we're in the first week of term 2 here. And joining us now as a co-host is the head of our podcast social media, Evan Pike. How's it going, my man?
Yeah, thank you. Going good. We got a great interview today.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Very excited about that. I'm just hanging out at home, as everybody should be, because it's a lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Just resting up for second semester, ready to go for a solid 2021.
Yeah, for sure. And we had quite the guest to kick off the second half. You may have seen his articles in the Toronto Star. You may have seen his journalistic pieces when he worked for Sportsnet, or you may have heard him on the air on Sportsnet 5-9 The Fan when he was a co-host of Primetime Sports with Bob McCowan. We had Damien Cox. A really great interview that taught us a lot about his side of the industry, the journalism and media side, and really just a real quality interview. Evan, what did you think of it?
Yeah, he's had so much experience in sort of these sort of situations, with interviewing, guests and sort of to see him on the other side and just sort of how, experienced and comfortable and the way he can carry a conversation is something I think that both of us hope to aspire towards. And anybody sort of looking towards journalism and media and being able to really just sort of tell a story or analyze a story or anything along those lines. I think his insight on his career and the things he's learned and his experiences is very valuable for sport management students.
Yeah, and he really there was a couple points that stood out to me. Just how from his view, sports media has progressed almost a lifetime. How it's viewed, how it's consumed, how it's perceived. I mean, a bit of a culture shock because he was saying to us he started in 1985 in journalism school. He was writing typewriters and that for me personally was just like a big whoa moment for me of how far media and how it's produced or consumed has gone this far as we enter 2021.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh yeah,
the advances in technology and everything. It's humbling, right? It's good to sort of hear those things. Like, we don't have to experience those sort of things. Like, my parents will tell me, when they were in school, when they were writing assignments on typewriters, they made a mistake, they'd have to start the whole thing over again. So we're very fortunate. We don't have to deal with that. You can just hit backspace.
The magic of autocorrect, the magic of autocorrect, spell check, just those simple things makes you think what else we take for granted. And he also shares his experiences with being on the committee for the Lou Marsh Trophy, and lots of insight on how it came to be a tie this year with the award winners. We won't spoil anything on that, but it was a great story. Just like the rest of this interview. And I hope you tune in and join us for the ride. Evan, any final thoughts before we send it over to Damien?
Nope. I think it's a great time to send it over to Damien.
Yeah, definitely. With that, let's send it over to Damien Cox of the Toronto Star. We hope you all enjoy episode 12. Cheers, folks. All right, to kick off 2021 and the second half of season 2 of the SPMA Council Podcast, we have a very special guest, a sports industry veteran, if you will, with work spanning over a multitude of organizations, notably the Toronto Star and Sportsnet, the Fan 590. Please welcome Damien Cox to the podcast. It is a pleasure to have you on.
Good morning, guys. Whenever people start calling you a veteran, it's easier just to say, we got an old guy with us today. He's going to tell us about stuff that happened a long, long time ago. Actually, I realized the other day that I'm now into, having started at the Toronto Star in 1983, I'm now into my fifth decade of writing for them. So I've been doing this for a long, long time, which is makes me one of the really lucky guys in the industry.
For sure. As we like to start off all of our episodes, it's a regular feature going on at the SPMA Council Podcast. Damien, what makes your industry story unique?
I think one of the great things about working in journalism and broadcasting, all the different things I've done, is pretty much everybody's story is unique. I mean, it's really, I know guys who started, they were lawyers or they were any number of other things. In terms of my personal story, I'm probably a good example of someone who pretty much just sort of fell ass backwards into something and ended up doing it for the majority of their adult life. Unlike a lot of people, I wasn't really focused in school and focused on journalism in particular, and really not focused at all on working in sports media. So I guess if my story's unique, hopefully partly it's because I feel like I've been successful, but also hopefully because this is not where I expected to be in any way, shape, or form, if I expected to be anywhere. And yet here I am. So I guess it's about the luck of the draw, about following your heart, about making decisions often more with your gut than with your brain. And that's probably the part of my story that's unique.
So a little off topic, what sort of did you see yourself doing before you started this career in journalism?
I had no clue. I mean,
No.
I just had no clue. And then, but once I got into, so I was at McMaster. I did a degree in a bunch of stuff, but ended up getting a degree in political science. I always laugh when I think about my first year there, and I was doing classes in chemistry and calculus, and it just shows where life can take you. And then I could have gone to law school or journalism school. I'll never forget the disappointed look on my parents' face when I told them I was going to journalism school. And then it kind of clicked in a way, because once I thought, okay, this is something I think I'd like to do, and it melded well with politics. And so that was certainly where I thought I was going to end up, is sort of following, political journalism. I guess when I first started working, I thought, okay, well, I'll work at City Hall, and then I'll work at Queen's Park, and then I'll work at the, in Ottawa, and maybe I'll get a foreign posting somewhere. That's sort of what, that's as close to a dream as I had. So that's probably as close as I can tell you any kind of plan I ever had.
Right. And so that was sort of your motivation in terms of going towards sport in journalism and broadcasting, or was there something else that sort of triggered the sport
No, I
aspect?
mean, I really wasn't motivated to go towards sports. It just kind of happened. I'd been working, so I was hired full-time at the Star in 1985. You guys remember 85, eh? And I remember, and I worked, my first job was in the Scarborough News Bureau. And I was sort of between there and the downtown news pool for 4.5 years until, it's not that I wasn't getting anywhere, but I was kind of learning the business. I was a cub reporter, I covered fires and parades and, all sorts of stuff. And then, some murder trials, stuff like that. And then in 1989, one of the guy who was sports editor came up and said, would you be interested in coming over to the sports department? And so I thought, maybe I'd cover, like back then, high school sports was a big beat. And I thought it'd be something like that, or junior hockey. And he said, no, I want you to cover the Leafs. And I was like, whoa. And I'll never forget the city editor at the time, who was my boss, when I told him that, the sports department or sports editor had offered me this position. And he said, why would you want to do that? And that's sort of the way it was thought of at that time. So again, going with my gut and my heart more than my brain, probably, I said, okay, I'll try it. And that's how I ended up going down that path.
Right. And so at that point, was that sports editor, was he sort of someone that sort of obviously gave you that chance, but excuse me, but what do you think that is important for people like new graduates starting industry professionals? Do you think it's important for people to give future sport managers those sort of opportunities in terms of like, giving them chances like that to cover, professional sports and sort of big opportunities like that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, and I think this differs a little bit than the way it is today, although I don't necessarily know what the way it is today. I mean, I'd done all the basics. I'd learned how to be a news reporter. I'd covered, been involved in some really big stories as part of a group. So that was my training. And he was giving me an opportunity, but it was also, I was someone who had sort of apprenticed, if you will, and was ready to help his department. And I was able to do that. But all the things I learned in news journalism really ended up being very much to my benefit in sports journalism, which some people think is such a different thing. And for me, it was largely just taking the same set of skills and ideas and applying them to something else. And I've always believed that I could have worked in, politics or sports or entertainment or whatever, I think. And I think that's what a journalist can do. And as it turns out, working in different media as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, I like that you touched on, the concept of, constantly learning while, using those transferable skills to your advantage. And, to our listeners, to SPMA students listening out there, you can in any role, if you take advantage of it, you're bound to get some transferable skills. So even if and like in your situation, if it's like a crime report or a political report, the basis of reporting the facts, keeping good journalistic integrity, that applies to getting to stories in sports, ensuring that you're putting out good content for the readers to consume each morning, whether it's in the traditional paper version or digitally through their phones, which is happening a lot more right now. I want to switch to, paths from writing to radio, where you were a co-host on Primetime Sports on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, alongside Canadian radio legend Bob McCowan for a number of years. Although sport has shifted to a digital heavy environment, what value do sports radio productions similar to Primetime bring to the consumer?
Well, I think it's something that we're still kind of evaluating. I think, sports fans, sports consumers of sports entertainment, we can, identify people in any way we want, consume their information and want to consume their information in lots of different ways. And before, and again, not to take you back to the Stone Age, but when I grew up in Hamilton, it was the Hamilton Spectator, the sports section of the Hamilton Spectator, and then maybe as part of the morning, they'd have a sports report on the radio station. And that was pretty much it. Now, of course, you've got this huge universe. And what you're seeing is, whether it's newspapers or radio in particular, and even television, that had a certain role at one point, now their role is shifting. Right. So when it comes to radio, I think the role has shifted and maybe been diminished by to some respect. And I think sports radio is still finding, okay, if we can't be what we used to be, what we can be, just like newspapers are. So I remember, sort of in the early 90s or in the 90s when sports radio was really starting or getting big in particular, you didn't want to miss an update at 5 or 5:20 or 5:40. And you wanted to be listening all the time so you'd know what was going on. Well, the three of us probably would think that is about the slowest possible way I could get my information now, because right. Yep. We're going to go on social media, we're going to be going to websites, we're going to be doing various things. So I think that has changed radio. So now it has to become even more about entertainment and opinion.
Definitely. And
I think that has changed it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you do see that entertainment aspect coming through in lots of productions. It's all about making people want to tune in, especially those who aren't your traditional sports radio audience, and you're seeing things that you wouldn't think that would be done even 10 years ago. There's many quizzes going on. There's the comedic elements brought into sports radio sometimes. No longer can just sit by and read off the headlines. They're competing. Sports radio is competing for airtime. With a disadvantage, because on the other side is the visual format, where people can find more appealing. So there's definitely been a shift, but I think it's sort of for sports radio to ensure that they're always innovating their production, the quality of the production, and what they can do to advance it to ensure that they have the best listenership possible.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they're trying,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure where they're going to be in another 5 years. I mean,
Yeah.
now, if I want to listen to a sports discussion, I mean, I have to be honest, I'm not a huge consumer of sports media. So I don't know what a lot, but I'm more likely to listen to a podcast, whether it's Bill Simmons or whatever, as opposed to make an appointment to be and listen to the radio show. And I know you can get that in podcast form as well, but that's another area that radio is competing against. So, I think, like all media, it has to be evolving, and it has to be evolving fast.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to sort of switch back gears towards your career now. Sort of maybe touch on something in your career you've encountered, maybe a moment or some sort of like setback in whether it was your career or the industry, and really how did that sort of help you or challenge you for the rest of your career?
Well, I have to be honest. I mean, I was I've had a pretty lucky career without a whole lot of setbacks. And so probably, in terms of not necessarily a setback, but a moment at which I had to reevaluate and rethink, okay, if I can't necessarily do that, then what am I going to do? And, so probably that came about, what are we now? A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I left Sportsnet. And so after doing television and radio for years, or having left the newspaper industry full-time to work in television and radio, I now wasn't going to be working in television and radio anymore. And I think I was 58 years old at that time. And I thought, okay, well, does this mean my career is over? Does this mean I want my career to be over? Does this mean I should start, looking around for other opportunities in a business where, as I joked to you guys before, I started learning on a typewriter. Is there any room left for me? Learn at journalism school on a typewriter. Is there any room for me? Particularly with the necessary diversification of the business, bringing in, a lot more women, a lot more people of different ethnicities. And so, I wouldn't say it was a setback, but it really caused me to ponder, okay, how do I want this to go?
Right.
And, I think basically I've ended up continuing to write columns for the Toronto Star and do some books and do some other projects, and it's working out pretty good. But, it is a moment that causes you to pause.
Right. And you also mentioned that, when you were starting out, you were, writing assignments and doing journals and articles on a typewriter. Would you say that technology and sort of the advancement there has been a bit of a challenge?
But I mean, that was a long time ago, right? Like, let me tell you, the internet was a big thing. I mean, so I've been working in the business. I was just starting to work, in sports media when the internet hit. So that was in the early 90s. And that changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you work through that. And then, like I say, 24/7 sports radio, sports TV, that changed that. And then, what has happened, people like myself working both in newspapers and radio and television, doing it, that changed that.
Right.
So, my career, because of when it's taken place and over a long period of time, it's that sort of technological challenge has been there frequently all along. It wasn't just, and then, so now it's, what's meaningful: podcasts,
Right.
books, magazines, radio, television. What matters anymore? what allows you to work in the business and find something meaningful to say. So I think that's always been a challenge in media, because things have been changing so fast over the last 40 years.
Yeah, definitely. It honestly feels like a world of change, even in like the past even in the past 5 to 10 years. But I like the point where you said, you had to take a moment to pause, and I can assume that you listeners out there, everyone felt that in the early stages of 2020, especially those that working in the industry. Everything stops. Everything stopped. There, fans, bans, no sports games, no, not even recreational sports games, nothing. So for a lot of people, I think taking some time to pause is really beneficial to evaluate yourself, evaluate your priorities, and like you said, evaluate what brings you purpose, what brings you meaning in your work. And if you find a role, temporary or permanent, doesn't matter. If you find a role that has purpose, that has meaning, over time, it doesn't feel like work, because it's something that you enjoy doing, and it's not just something you can put on your resume or put on your LinkedIn and sort of hang your hat on that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the nice part of it. The difficult part is the panic.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Of sort of not being part of anything in the way that you've been part of things for a long period of time. And it takes a while. I mean, we're talking months, and trying to figure out and feel good about things again. At a certain point, you reach the conclusion that, look, this is all fun and games. I think too much in sports media, there's this belief that we're doing something that is going to last, that we're going to have a legacy, that we're going to, that I want to stay in it because people are going to remember me. Well, I've seen so many people come and go in the business, and gradually the realization comes is that it's a job. It's a really fun job, or it can be, and that's what it is. But it takes you a little while to get to that point, and then turn yourself around and say, okay, if I do want to work, what do I want to do? And so that's kind of been the process for me.
Yeah, definitely. So to touch on the fun parts, you were part of the committee that votes on the Lou Marsh Award. For anyone that doesn't know who the Lou Marsh Award, what the Lou Marsh Award is, sorry, it's given to Canada's Athlete of the Year. Now, this year was unique as for. Correct me if I'm wrong, for the first time in the awards history, there was a tie, as it was given to Alphonso Davies of FC Bayern of the Bundesliga and Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif of the Kansas City Chiefs. What was it like to be a part of that process, and how much did the humanitarian efforts of both athletes influence the decision?
Well, I mean, I've been involved in the Lou Marsh Committee for about 15 years, and I run it now. So it's sort of
nice.
For me, it's half interesting and half work, and let me tell you, when you try to get together a lot of sports media people, it is really like herding cats. And usually we have a lot of people in a big room and then a few people on telephone. And one of the things I've tried to do since I've been running the committee is I wanted to make it bigger, cover more parts of Canada, and add diversity to it. So that means our group is now swollen to over 30. We're about 35, 36 now. And this year we couldn't do it in person. We had to do it by Zoom. So that made it different this year as well. But the discussion was excellent, as it always is, and quite intense, as it always is. And I think this year, the humanitarian contributions of these two young men really played a part. More for Duvernay Tardif, I would say, because he gave up football to work on the front lines during the COVID crisis. But certainly Alphonso Davies, because of his history as a refugee and the work he's doing for the United Nations and trying to be a spokesman in that area, was part of it. But I think if Duvernay Tardif, if he hadn't done what he'd done and opted out of the NFL this year, Alphonso Davies would have won the award. I think people recognize, and even Duvernay Tardif recognizes, that Davies is a superior athlete who had this incredible year. Duvernay Tardif is one part of a superb team,
right?
And he's not even the best player on the team or anything anywhere close to it. But his decision to opt out, was so important in 2020 and seen as such a sacrifice. And he was part of a Super Bowl team. And eventually, I can tell you, I know how the vote went, and it was quite incredible how close it was. It was a great moment, I think, for the committee and for the Lou Marsh Trophy to have a little bit of a different kind of decision.
So, Damien, sort of sticking to this sort of fun aspect of your job, sort of want to ask you a creative question here. So if you sort of had an opportunity to interview anyone in history, whether it be alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I mean, the list of possibilities is long and probably would be different tomorrow if you asked me tomorrow. I mean, right now I'm reading Barack Obama's memoir, and I already have a lot of questions that I would have for the former president. So certainly he's a guy who would be incredible to interview. I mean, I think the one thing about him is he's obviously, and it's great that he's still alive. You could go back in history and try to unravel some unfinished business or mysteries from the past, and with figures from political or international fame, and want to know why they did what they did. I mean, I think there's a lot of people like that. But whether it's politics or music, I mean, it could be somebody like Bruce Springsteen. Sports, if it was someone like Roger Federer, that would be someone I'd be interested in talking to. So I think people that have more to say than just what the actual thing they do. And I know Barack Obama would want to talk basketball for sure, and the Raptors. What's wrong with the Raptors? So I think he'd be great to talk to on any number of levels. So I'll stick with him for now.
For sure. Like that you brought up athletes and public figures who again have different layers to them, and as you said, are more than what they do as a job. So great point for sure. Well, we're just at the end of the episode, and it's tradition around here at the SPMA Council Podcast to let the guest end off the show to say what's on your mind, or to give a bit of advice for our listeners who are mostly SPMA students on how to build a successful career in the sport industry, or in your case, the journalism and media side of it. So, Damien, thank you again, and the floor is yours.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. And I'm always a little reluctant when it comes to offering up advice. I mean, you're going to look at me for advice based on where I was when I was your guys' age. I'm not sure I'm the best guy. I mean, I could tell you the best places to drink at McMaster University, but I couldn't necessarily tell you, how I use that as a springboard. But the only thing I would say is that I think, you could reflect a little bit on is, if you're looking at my career path, is, well, I was always interested in a lot of things. I always read a lot. And I didn't decide, okay, I'm going to do this one thing and aim at one thing. So I think being, skilled at a few things and being willing to learn and serve an apprenticeship really served me well. So, at a time like this where media is changing so fast, I think the best advice I could give anybody is read a lot of books, be able to talk about more than just one thing or one area, and be prepared to be flexible and do something that you don't necessarily want to do, but as a means to getting you ultimately to where you want to get to. I mean, for me, as I explained to you guys, I certainly didn't lay out a path for myself, and I couldn't have foreseen when I was starting out or leaving journalism school what the world of sports media was going to look like 25 years in the future. I mean, it wasn't there. So those are the things I would do. I understand why people want to get dialed in and do one thing, but to be really good at what we do here, and to be good journalists, good broadcasters, good podcasters, good whatever, it really serves you to be well-read, well-rounded, and willing to, be flexible and do things that aren't necessarily first things on your agenda.
That's an awesome way to end the episode off. Damien, again, it was a pleasure having you on. Thanks so much for coming on to the show.
Okay, guys, it was a pleasure, and good luck, and maybe we'll talk again soon.
Cheers, Damien.